Hi everyone and welcome. I'm Elena Jacinta, the founder of Back to Your Body, an online somatic therapy practice. And I'm really excited to be having this conversation today with my colleague Arpitha Shankar, who is a body-oriented, attachment-informed trauma practitioner and a couple specialist. She is trained in somatic experiencing, body dynamics, and currently is doing her training in neuroaffective relational model. And in this interview, we'll be diving into what somatic couples therapy is, how it works, why bringing in the body into relationship work can be such a transformative experience. And if you are in a relationship and looking for support or curious about somatic therapy, and I think you'll find some really valuable insights in what Arpitha has to share. So to start off, Arpitha, can you share what somatic couples therapy actually is, how it differs from traditional talk-based approaches to couples therapy?
Sure, Elena. So in somatic couples therapy, what I work on is primarily to integrate the body into the healing process. And how that differs from traditional talk therapy is it primarily focuses on verbal communication and cognitive understanding and strategies to dialogue better. And all of these strategies are very valuable, and there is a place for that. However, it has to be built on the foundation of bodily awareness. And what I mean by that is in the somatic work, we recognize that the way we relate, these relationship patterns are stored not just in our thoughts, but they're stored in our bodies as physical sensations, tensions, and movements. The body plays several crucial roles in the relationship dynamics. So for example, what triggers reactivity is these unresolved emotions and trauma responses. So many a times we learn strategies to be more responsive and less reactive, but then we kind of short circuit the key wisdom, which is what comes in the way, and how do I come in the way of myself from implementing these strategies. And that is uncovered in the somatic work. It also provides very valuable information through physical sensations that often precedes conscious awareness and cognitive processing. And also the beauty of somatic couples work is you realize that you have another person to co-regulate with. So it's literally like, say, in a conflict, managing a conflict can be looked at as like driving a car on the highway and having the awareness on how early to press the brakes so that you're not crashing into a car ahead of you. And that information is given by the body. How to brake, how much to press the brake. These are all the strategies of dialoguing that one develops. But even before that, there is so much happening in our body that recognizes what's the safe distance to brake my car. How do I maneuver speed such that we are still safe? All of these decision making can be compared to inner regulation awareness. And for that the decision making that leads to this inner regulation is done by the body. And sometimes, even if we are agitated inside, but our partner is grounded and present, because there is the therapist that is holding the container, then it opens the ground to co-regulate and approach conflicts as a team rather than you versus me. So the body serves as a very important resource for grounding and for authentic presence during difficult conversations. Yeah, so these are some of the ways somatic couples therapy differs from traditional talk therapy.
And you spoke about the importance of the body and co-regulation, and I love this analogy of driving a car on a highway. I'm sure many can relate to that as well. Can you talk about a little bit about how a typical somatic couple therapy session is, what it looks like? Are there any specific techniques or practices that you often use with couples?
Sure. A typical session might include, and it would start with checking in with verbal and somatic awareness. It could be very presence oriented, guiding questions to enable couples to come into the here and now. Like, what are you noticing in the body right now? Mm, What parts of your body are alive? And what are they bringing up as information or intentions for you? So, a typical session starts with slowing down so that we can have more presence for the interactions that are going to unfold in the session. And when we slow down and stay with the interactions with presence, we can also track the physical responses that accompanies communication. I've had couples who, when they are guided through this process and then engage with interactions, I've seen a partner say, I'm willing to receive what you're sharing as long as you're not wagging your fingers. So if you say the wagging the fingers is so enmeshed with the information that this partner is so intensely trying to communicate. However, for this partner, for whatever life experience they've had, wagging the finger means it's very unsafe. But the information is not unsafe. So it really helps this it aids or supports these nuanced discernments, this awareness around discerning and differentiating different elements of the communication and interaction that's happening, and not become hijacked by the unsafety and then become reactive. A typical session would also include boundary exercises to experience healthy connection and separation, because separation is also healthy. And many a times we come into intimate relationships with very traumatic experiences of separation. And hence, negotiating space could be a big point of contention. So, somatically feeling connection and separation through boundary work, certain exercises that enables co-regulation. I also enjoy facilitating movement exercises to explore patterns of pursuing and withdrawing. What does that mean for you to be pursued? What does it mean for you to pursue someone? And what does withdrawal mean? And how do you communicate your impulses to withdraw? So it's really exploring all these nuanced ways of emotional dance between couples. I also work with mindful touch exercises when appropriate. And another key piece that I also work with couples is working with the felt sense of safety and trust in relationships. Because there is an inherent sense or a demand that we consciously or unconsciously place that my partner should give me safety. While, yes, as individuals, we hold a responsibility and a commitment to safety, but the foundation of that is your own inner relationship with safety and how safe do you feel within. And from that place, communicating what safety means for you to your partner and for the partner to take accountability and responsibility for the ways they may make you feel unsafe, because it's very possible and natural for even people who are in love to make you feel unsafe because they don't know what unsafety means for you. But then when you communicate it, then they can take responsibility without spiraling into shame, and for the other person to know that they have the right to ask and communicate these things. So, so I also work with exercises of a felt sense of safety and trust in the relationship.
So you mentioned working with the body, working with a mindful movement, the felt sense of safety, which includes the body. Um, I'm just wondering that there might be some people who may feel hesitant about body focused work. So, how would you support those couples or one partner that feels a bit uncomfortable or unsure with this part of the process?
Mm, yeah, it's a very valid question. It generally helps if both the partners have done independent work with the somatic, soma-based trauma practitioner and have done individual work on their childhood trauma or their patterns of wounding. And sometimes clients come without a history of individual work as well. And there are times when they are uncomfortable with somatic work, and I think that is wisdom in their body resisting deep somatic work. And my job as a therapist is to honor that wisdom of the body and not to rush in and give some breathing exercises or to make them feel like they have to work hard or feel guilty that they don't feel their body enough. So those are the things I take immense care to ensure that I don't even inadvertently make them feel that way. I start with very gentle awareness practices rather than deep or intense physical interventions. So it could be as gentle as can you keep your hand on your palm? And can you feel the palm that is on top? And then can you feel the palm that is below your palm? So very simple awareness practices that is gentle for them, not something that I judge as gentle, something that they feel is gentle and safe enough. Sometimes for some people who are very cognitive and who associate with logic and rational better, then a bit of psychoeducation explaining the neuroscience behind body-based approaches could also soften the resistances that are coming in the way. And like I said, just a key piece of respecting their boundaries and offering choice about the level of participation they can indulge in. I've seen even that really softening the resistances within their body. And at times, framing what I see cognitively. Oh, okay, when I see you say that I don't want to talk to you, I noticed that your chest was really upright and your jaws were very tight, and being a mirror by reflecting what I'm noticing, that becomes a bridge to their somatic awareness. So, because how do you know that you have a crooked way of smiling when you smile? By looking at the mirror, right? That's how we develop an awareness. So many times you may just need mirroring and mirroring and mirroring, and over time, you develop your own ability. Um, I also use metaphors and visualizations if direct physical sensation is challenging. So instead of asking, what do you feel in your chest? That can be very confrontational. And instead, there are people who are very visual and imaginative. So that could be a bridge, metaphors and visualizations. And finally, also normalizing the discomfort of the process as part of the process. It's not meant to be comfortable or exciting or enjoyable all the time. Just like learning any new skill, there is a teething stage and discomfort of a new way of relating with your body. So these are the different ways I work with the resistances that comes up in the therapy room.
Would you say that somatic couples therapy is suitable for all kinds of relationships or relational issues? Maybe you can give some examples of the issues it can help with.
Sure. I mean, this model can be adapted to very diverse relationship structures. And some of the issues that I think can immensely benefit are like, say, communication breakdowns. That's the most common things that couples come to me for. In a conflict, there is a breakdown of the communication, and partners feel very emotionally hijacked by patterns of reactivities and automatisms. It could be like, withdrawing, shutting down, or stonewalling, sarcasm. These are things that can really come in the way of authentic connection. So to become curious about what role does sarcasm play? What role does withdrawal play? How does it keep you functional in this relationship? And not really look at it as a dysfunction, but they are all really actually bits for connection. And when we can bring in this awareness, what I see is it really leads to a lot of compassion, because now you're depersonalized from their reactive patterns. It's not about you entirely. It's also about some adaptive strategies that they learned to survive whatever they needed to survive. I also work with rebuilding trust after betrayal, where safety needs to be felt in the body in such times. It's about coming back to what safety feels and then rebuilding trust from that place. Also, parental disagreements that can trigger strong emotional responses, because in those places, many a times, there is also developmental trauma involved. And also cultural differences in expressing and perceiving emotions. I see not these days there are a lot of couples from different culture, ethnicity, and hence they may bring their own cultural perspectives and upbringing that colors the way they idealize relationship connections. So, so yes, these are the different patterns in relating that comes up, and also where couples have become roommates, raising children, and feel like, oh, I don't feel like we really exist as lovers anymore. We are existing only as individuals on an autopilot of responsibility to raise the kids. Um, and in such situations can also greatly benefit from somatic couples therapy.
Thank you for mentioning that, all these examples that you gave. I'm sure so many people can relate to. So relatable. And you also briefly mentioned trauma, and I know this is your background and something you trained extensively in. Um, what are some signs of unresolved trauma? Maybe some things that you already mentioned, but maybe there's something else that might be showing up in a couple's relationship. How can somatic couples therapy help them either individually or together?
Sure. Yes, some of the indicators might include disproportionate reactions to minor triggers. Uh, uh, Sometimes it could be, and when I say minor triggers, this is no way to invalidate the importance of whatever is triggering. It is to know that your reactions are always proportionate to whatever was the key contributor to when the reaction came into existence in your life. In couples interactions, it can feel like for the partner, why is he or why is she overreacting to something so simple as just throwing the wet towel on the bed, So if you notice that there are a lot of such disproportionate reactions to minor triggers, then it could mean that there is unresolved trauma that's affecting the relationship, or physical shutdown or flooding during conflicts. Like conflicts feel so overwhelming, and you lose your presence and your center in such things. It could also be lack of boundaries, inability to say no, inability to ask, inability to state your needs, or even a belief that I need to be understood without me having to say that. All of these could be signs of some baggage that needs processing. It could also be rigid physical patterns during disagreements, like freezing, aggression, um, Another key thing that also transpires between couples is the inability to stay present during intimate moments. That could also be something uh, that can be addressed in couples work. So in essence, we can really address the physiological patterns that talk therapy alone might be unable to reach, and then it can help couples create a sense of safety from within and between them at a nervous system.
And it's really helpful to know those signs because, as you said, it sometimes some people think these are minor things. Why can't you get over this? But there is much more. There is much more to uncover. Mm-hmm. So when couples or really anyone who come to therapy, they very often ask this question, and I'm curious how you are going to answer it. How long does it take to start noticing the change? How long does it take to start noticing the shifts?
It's a very valid question. Um, so most couples can start noticing subtle changes in about 6 to 8 sessions. Um, though very deep pattern changes typically take about a minimum 3 to 6 months of consistent work. But what are the indicators that's telling me that I'm on the pathway, or we are on the pathway of improvements is, like I said, greater awareness of early warning signs before conflicts escalate. So a very key element I tell my couples is it's not that because you come to couples work you learn not to fight or not to have conflicts. No, that's not the idea. The idea is that you learn to fight so well that conflicts become portals of deeper intimacy. The conflicts become portals of, oh, I didn't know this dimension of you, and how lovely that I now know a different dimension of you, and we can now swim into greater depth and relate at a much more intimate level. So there will be, the hope is that there would be greater awareness of early warning signs before conflicts escalate, and capacity to exercise restraint. Like even if a big part of you is wanting to say the thing that you want to say, but really sensing into the energetic intention. Is my energetic intention towards connection or towards vindictiveness or whatever that could be powering those patterns of automatisms? Another hope is increased capacity to stay present during difficult conversations by feeling your body, feeling your feet, and the ability to use the exercises we practice during the sessions, also outside of the sessions. Another sign would be deeper feelings of connection and attunement, learning each other's love languages. And couples therapy is not only about focusing on conflicts, it's also about focusing on what is working and how can we build that field of coherence between you both. And more satisfying physical and emotional intimacy. And perhaps you might also be aware that now you have more embodied resources for managing stress together to communicate your inner landscape better with more personal leadership and accountability than communicating like a very helpless victim. You now feel there is more personal leadership within.
And it starts with subtle changes, as you said. And I believe those subtle changes, even subtle changes, can create the ripple effect in the relationship towards deeper intimacy, deeper understanding, deeper awareness, all of that. Are there any common misconceptions that you sometimes come across about somatic couples therapy or somatic work in general?
Yeah. One common misconception that I heard from a prospective client is it's about giving each other some form of somatic massage and getting the guidance. So that they sometimes there's a preconception that it's all about touch and massage. That's something that I've heard a lot, but no, it's more about how can we building bodily awareness while working with cognitive reframing of the ways we relate with each other. So it's building both the bridges simultaneously, and not only touch, or it's definitely not massage. Uh, so
It's good to
yeah,
know. It's yeah, sometimes there's all these different descriptions of what somatic work could be. So as we're coming to a close, my final question to you, Arpitha, is for couples who are curious but maybe a little unsure, what would you say to them? What is a good first step or mindset to bring into this kind of work for someone to get started with you?
many times we think love alone is enough, but the hard truth is relationships mirror the deepest woundings in us. Intimate relationships, they mirror the deepest woundings in us. And it takes a lot of courage to face those woundings in calibrated levels of whatever you have the capacity for, and building your capacity and then diving deeper. So yes, it is deep work. However, the other side of the deep work is more fulfillment and more connection and relational satisfaction. So it may many a times couples feel like it's the end of the road and they just have to put up with it. Like there's a sense of helpless choicelessness that many couples unfortunately sign up for, but it doesn't have to be. The very fact that you feel choiceless is a sign of trauma, because trauma makes you feel like there's no other choice but this. However, with work and intention and courage, there is hope and there is possibilities. Even if you don't see the possibilities, uh, I have faith that just like how like a creeper moves towards sunlight and resources, there is an inner impulse to move towards connection. Like we are wired for connection. So I hope that you can trust that inner impulse that's nudging you towards connection, to lean into it and sign up for, to see the possibilities that might unfold for you.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much, Arpita, for this conversation. Thank you all for joining us. And I hope this offered you a deeper understanding of how somatic couples therapy can support this deeper connection, fulfillment, healing in your relationship. So big thanks, Arpita, for sharing your expertise and perspective. And if those of you watching, if you're interested in learning more or exploring this work with Arpita, I'll include some resources and links below. And hope you take good care and stay connected to yourself, your bodies, and each other.